Hello everyone, welcome back to another Team Player Gaming video. Today is another teamwork build, and this time we're talking about the Wrestler archetype from the Grand Bazaar. Let's get started.
We need as much speed as we can get for this build, so for our ancestry we're going with the Hunter Automaton. We aren't going to be using any weapons for this build, so we're always going to be able to move on all fours. So we'll get that 30-foot speed. Our class for this build is going to be the Animal Instinct Barbarian. This build is all about grappling, so for our animal, we want to pick one that gives us an unarmed attack with the grapple traits, like the snake or the ape. For this build, I'm going with the Sheriff background. This will give us a boost to Charisma and Intimidation. We want Intimidation to be a part of this build, even though we're focusing on grappling, because it makes it easier for everyone to do what they want to do, including us. For first level, our ancestry feat is going to be Energy Beam. We're an Animal Instinct Barbarian. That means while we're raging, we're not going to be able to use a bow. So we need a ranged attack that we can use when we're raging for those pesky flying enemies. It may only be a D4 base for damage, but at least we can attack flying enemies while we're raging. Our first class feat for this build is going to be Raging Intimidation. Intimidation is part of this build, so we need to be able to do it while we're raging. Because for some reason, Intimidation has a concentrate trait, so we can't normally do it during rage. Never made any sense to me whatsoever, but that's the way it is. Before I go any further, I should go over the starting stats for this build. You should start with 18 Strength, 12 Dexterity, 14 Constitution, 10 Intelligence, 10 Wisdom, and 14 Charisma. We're obviously going to need Strength for all of our grapple type stuff, but we also need Con to, not die, and Charisma for our Intimidation. The Dex is also going to give us a little bit more survivability since we won't be wearing armor in this build. Now, for the strategy for this build, we need to focus on grappling the enemy that does the most damage. We're a Barbarian. We can take the damage, but our allies might not. Sometimes the enemy that does the most damage is a spellcaster. To that end, for our second level class feat, we will be taking No Escape. This is going to help us with our action economy. If the enemy gets out of our grapple and moves away from us, then we can go after them. This means even if they spend all 3 actions moving away from us to get as far away as possible, we are still going to be able to grapple them at the end of our turn. And grappling a spellcaster pretty much takes them out of the fight. So yeah, if a spellcaster is doing the most damage, then we definitely want to grapple them. Our free archetype feat for this level is going to be our Wrestler dedication. This will automatically make us better at athletics. Plus, we'll get Titan Wrestler for free. Also, we'll gain a +2 bonus if anything tries to grapple us or swallow us whole. It's the swallow whole that's important here. If an enemy swallows us whole, then it can go after allies. We don't want that. For our general feat at 3rd level, we want to take Adopted Ancestry. Automatons rarely run into those of their own kind, so it makes sense. Also, there are a couple of human feats we want to take for this build, so this will allow us to do that. Now, for our 4th level class feat, we want to take Fast Movement. We want to be as fast as possible for this build, so this will give us a 10-foot speed bonus when we're raging. Our free archetype feat for this level is going to be Suplex. If we grapple the wrong enemy and need to go after a different one, this will allow us to do some damage to the enemy we're currently grappling before we move on to the one we actually need to grapple. Also, this could allow our allies to finish off an enemy that we've done a lot of damage to. Overall, we want to use this when we don't mind letting an enemy go. For our 5th level ancestry feat, we're going to take Cooperative Nature. I can see quite a few ways that we can hold out the guy we have grabbed so that an ally can hit him better. This will give us a +4 on that check. That check is probably going to be Athletics, which we're already good at, so this is going to make us even better at it. The class feat at 6th is going to be Animal Skin. We're not going to be wearing armor in this build, So this is going to give us an AC bonus that's going to stack with our bracers of armor. For the free archetype feat at this level, we're going to take Crushing Grab. This will allow us to do some damage even when we can't just strike the enemy. At 7th, Fleet is just going to give us even more speed, which we need to keep enemies grappled. At 8th level, we want to take Share Rage. This is a pretty obvious teamwork option. Now we can give the fighter Rage so he does even more damage. Then if we've got the free archetype variant rule, then we want to take Submission Hold. This is just going to allow us to keep our grapple going on strength-based enemies easier. Plus, even if they get out of the grapple and decide to go after an ally, they're going to do less damage. Our 9th level ancestry feat is going to be Cooperative Soul. Now that we use aid with the guy we have grappled, we can't get a failure or a critical failure. We can only get a success or a critical success, which means that our allies are always going to get at least a +1 to hit the guy we have grabbed if we decide to aid them. At 10th level, we want to take our dedication that we're going to take on the class feat side of this build. The Monk Dedication. While the dedication itself doesn't actually help us, there are quite a few monk feats we want to take for this build. And for the free archetype side of this level, we want to take Spine Breaker. This is the same thing as Submission Hold, except this is going to work better against enemies that are dex-based. Plus, this is a really good debuff combo with aid. If we have an enemy grabbed, then we can use Spine Breaker and then attack them and then prepare to aid. This is going to give them at least a -3 to their AC. And it's going to give our ally at least a +1 to hit. And if we happen to critically succeed on both checks, then eventually we can give our ally essentially a +8 to hit the target. Because -4 to AC and +4 to hit. Of course, that's not going to happen too often, but there is always that chance. At 11th, we want to take our standard toughness. More hit points equals more survivability. Now, we want to take Furious Grab as soon as we possibly can. Now when we hit our enemy with one of our unarmed attacks, we can auto-grab them for 1 action. Now, as long as we have 2 actions, we can automatically grab our opponent without even rolling an athletics check. We still want to have high athletics in case we don't have 2 actions to hit them and then auto-grab them. On the free archetype side, we want to take Inescapable Grasp. Now our enemies have an even tougher time getting out of our grapple, even with teleportation and freedom of movement. Yes, now they have to make a DC 15 flat check to even use those options to get out of our grapple. This is in addition to any checks they have to make to actually use those options at all, such as casting a teleportation spell. At 13th, we'll take Lesser Augmentation, so our energy beam does a D6 instead of a D4. Again, flying enemies are going to be kind of a problem for us, so we need to be able to do more damage to them. At 14th, we want to take Basic Kata, and the feat we want to take for that is Stunning Fist. Now we can stun our enemies to get rid of one of their actions. Of course, in order to take that, for our free archetype feat, we're going to have to take Monk's Flurry. This will give us Flurry of Blows so that not only can we do more damage, but we can also more easily use our Furious Grab feat as well. You could also switch these two if you wanted. If you don't have a free archetype, then you want to take Monk's Flurry here. 15th is a standard Die Hard. You know, die at dying 5 instead of dying 4. Pretty standard. Now we want to take Terrifying Howl. This is going to help us demoralize all enemies within 30 feet instead of just one enemy at a time. Our free archetype feat for this level is going to be Aerial Pile Driver. This is basically Suplex except for 2 things. First of all, we do a 1d6 extra damage per damage dice. And number 2, we don't lose our hold on our target unless we fail or critically fail our check. This is what we want to use when we want our enemy to be prone and grappled. For our last ancestry feat at 17th level, we want to take Core Cannon. This is going to give us another ranged attack that's going to do quite a bit of damage. This is simply for flying enemies that have a lot of hit points. Also, if we set ourselves up in the right place,
then our enemies only have a certain amount of options, all of them bad. They can continue to allow us to attack with our big ranged attack. They could also attempt to use a big ranged attack against us. But if we set ourselves up correctly and our team is working with us, then it's only going to hit us, not other party members. This option would include things like a Dragon's Breath weapon. Then we have the standard fly down, attack us, and then fly up. And an enemy that only gets one attack is always good. Then we have the land attack twice. With this option, flying enemies are on the ground, so we can come out of our core cannon stance and then grapple them. And honestly, we don't really have a 17th level feat that we can take that will help this build, so we're just going to take this. At 18th level, we want to take Advanced Kata, and the feat we're going to take is going to be Tangle the Forest stance. When we're in this stance, if our enemies get out of our grapple, they still have to make another check to even move out of our reach. This means we can more easily grapple them on our next turn. This is also a great way to make enemies waste actions. If you don't have the free archetype, then you're going to want to take Basic Kata for Stunning Fist here. For our free archetype, we're going to want to take the Strangle feat. This is another way for us to really put the hurt on spellcasters. Most spells require verbal components. So if they try to cast a spell while they're being grabbed by us, they have to make a DC 10 flat check or they lose the spell. At 19th for our general feat, we want to take Canny Acumen and we're going to pick our reflex saves. Our reflex is going to be our lowest save and we want to fix that. Lastly, at 20th level, we want to take Contagious Rage. Now we can give our rage to all our allies one at a time. This is mainly going to help other melee fighters. Also, we can give our unarmed strikes to our party as long as they're willing to accept our anathema. For our free archetype feat, we want to take Advanced Kata and we're going to pick up Sleeper Hold. This gives us a chance to completely take an enemy out of the fight if we critically succeed. Also, if we're grappling a strength-based enemy, we can combine this with Submission Hold. If we don't critically succeed, then we can make them clumsy. This will make them easier to hit, and Submission Hold will make them weaker. Since Enfeebled and Clumsy apply to different things, we can apply both conditions to the enemy. Alright, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more Pathfinder 2nd Edition teamwork content. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, you can check out this video here. So until next time, remember, teamwork is vital.